Hey, what is going on everybody, and welcome to Fantasia. For today, we're going to be jumping into another session of Epic 7 out today. Got another balance adjustment for you guys. This time around, well, it is the day after Christmas, and Smilegate has bestowed on us quite a little gift here. Now, whether or not we like the gift or not, that is up for you to decide in the comment section down below, but we're going to be talking about 11 heroes and 2 artifacts that are going to be adjusted, and all of this will be implemented on January 8th. Okay, quite a bit of changes here that we are seeing, a lot of them to Moonlight characters, right? So Judge Kise, Last Rider Krau, Dragon Bride Senya, those 2 knights here, which is pretty interesting. And we see Baal Sezan, Beehoo, Hwayoung, Landy, Midnight Gala, Lilias, Moon Bunny Dom, Savior Adin, and Angelic Montmorancy. So yeah, that's already quite a bit, but on top of that, they're throwing in Crown of Glory and Otherworldly Machinery, both 5-star artifacts to boot. Okay, so when we were jumping into this here, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, but we're going to start with Judge Kise. She is an ML5, and she is not really getting a huge adjustment. This is like the 5th or 6th adjustment that they've done to her in like the past couple of years, but here we go. She now, instead of having a 75% chance to defense break for 2 turns, is going to have an 85% chance to defense break for 2 turns. Very minor change right there. Extra 10%, not too big of a difference. However, the big change here comes from her constellation change from Virgo to Sagittarius, right? And the Sagittarius star sign is actually a bit interesting for them to choose for her, because Virgo does allow you to get some effectiveness, but Sagittarius here, like with Benimaru, you're gonna see that her base speed will actually increase, so 119 base speed. This star sign also awakens into crit chance, which is good for her. Virgo did as well, but you're just foregoing the effectiveness here. You have a decent amount of attack. You don't awaken to crit damage or anything, but decent attack, good speed, good crit rate. Makes her a more offensive juggernaut, I'd say. Whether or not this actually makes her good, though, in like things like RTA and such, I legitimately cannot say. I've not really seen anybody use Judge Kise, and with this being the only real change, don't know what will come of it, honestly. Will people use her? I still don't really think so, just because the fact that she is so vulnerable and there's so many ways to kind of play around her. Not really sure why they chose to buff her here, but hey, I'm hoping it works out. I'm just not too well versed in Cleave. Okay, so next up we have Last Rider Krau. His literal only change is that his barrier strength is increased. Now, the thing is, I really want to see how much that barrier is, because his barrier is not that bad right now, especially because the last time they buffed him, he gets to apply this barrier every turn, right? So after suffering an attack that targets all allies, he grants a barrier for 2 turns. So essentially you can have almost 100% barrier uptime as long as you're constantly being hit by an AoE once per turn, right? Which is not bad. Last Rider Krau is actually a pretty decent counter pick into certain units like Bellion, like MLK-Ron and stuff, right? So he actually does have utility. The problem with him in the meta is that Empyrean Ilanov exists, so he kind of falls off and no one wants to pick him early, because if your opponent blocks defense penetration, he basically deals 0 damage, right? But this will be cool to see if he might be able to be useful against like Frieren, for example. Not really too sure. She carries a lot of damage here, and this might be their like attempted response to her, because she is pretty overtuned, right? Frieren is a very, very strong unit. Okay, moving on here, we have Dragon Bride Senya, another knight here that honestly I didn't expect him to buff more knights, but here we are. So instead of just granting a barrier proportional to her max health to herself and the ally in the back row for 2 turns, and granting her unique buff, the Oath of Punishment, for 2 turns, now she's actually going to gain 10 souls. This is important because her soul burn only requires 10 souls, so she's setting herself up to nuke your team. She still grants the barrier and stuff, but it's for 3 turns now, and she grants herself Oath of Punishment for 3 turns as well. Her fixed damage went from 2,500 damage to 4,000 damage, probably to mitigate the Fallen Cecilia, May Chloe type of passives. Honestly, not sure why they made Fallen Cecilia and made Chloe have those passives if they're going to just buff all the fixed damage that's out there in the game. But yeah, to each their own, I guess. We'll see how this works out. Now, you might be thinking, well, Oath of Punishment for 3 turns doesn't really make a huge difference. It is, you know, making her immune to debuffs and some negative effects. However, once you see here, her skill 3, her damage dealt is just going to be straight up increased. So you don't have to soul burn for extra damage anymore. Now you can use your 10 souls that you get from proccing your passive to immediately decrease skill cooldowns by 2 turns, which means once you get your Oath of Punishment, right, you're going to be able to skill 3. You'll have 1 turn of downtime, I'm pretty sure, where you can't do anything. You're just going to skill 1. And then the last turn where you still have this Oath of Punishment, you'll be able to skill 3 once again. So you're going to get 2 skill 3s with additional fixed damage onto your opponent, and it's going to be very, very devastating, right? A huge AoE attack. It will hurt quite a bit. So again, the reason why people stopped running Dragon Bride Senya is because Empyrean Ilinov literally exists, and because she exists, you can't really use anyone who defense penetrates. So we'll see if Dragon Bride Senya makes her way into the meta, if people start pre-banning Empyrean Ilinov. We'll see. She's already like the 2nd best knight in the meta next to Bossarunka. So we'll see if people's drafting habits change because of these units. But yeah, it is good to see Dragon Bride Senya get a bit of a boost. She is sometimes used in like Guild War defenses and such. So again, we'll see how she plays out, right? Next up is Baal and Sezan. Really small change. It's quite strange actually, but hey, to each their own. In terms of buffs, right? Smallgate might think this is great for PvE, but instead of increasing his chances by 5% with this EE, it'll increase all of the effect chances by 15%. So it essentially just makes him really consistent in applying debuffs, which is great actually for like expeditions and stuff, and in Ancient Inheritance as well. This is Fireball, by the way. This is not Sage Ball and Sezan. This is just regular Ball and Sezan. So yeah, great change, I guess. Not bad. Should have been like that to begin with, but just make debuffs more consistent for PvE units. If they're not going to get rid of 15%, might as well give everyone a 100% chance to land their buffs, or debuffs, right? Okay, moving on. We got a Beehoo. So Beehoo actually gets quite a big change here. He is going to lose this extra defense that he gets from his passive, and it's instead going to be replaced by a flat 30% effectiveness, which is not bad just because he wants to land debuffs, but you are losing quite a bit of bulk, right? Rangers tend to need a bit of defense. They tend to lack defense. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a loss there, but the effectiveness hopefully will make up for it. I think they're trying to make him a bit more offensive of a unit, especially with how the auto burns and stuff will detonate at the end of every turn for this upcoming RTA season. Is one of the warfare rules that are going to be applied, right? So I guess they want Beehoo to be kind of a more viable pick here, which could be fun. His Symphony of Radiance, that's his S3. So instead of just pushing up your combat readiness and putting Unbuffable on the opponent, now he'll inflict a burn. Now, you might be like, wait a minute, my Beehoo already does that. And yeah, if you have his EE, he already does this. So they basically just took his EE that everyone was running and slapped it into his kit, and then they changed his EE down here, which we'll get to. But for his star sign, he actually sees quite a bit of a change from Capricorn all the way to Pisces. So that is actually quite interesting because, again, you're losing out on some of your current stat lines, which is like your effectiveness and such, right? But they're going to make him a bit more offensive in that regard. So I don't know. Pisces is not bad. I just don't see. So here, this is the reference I'll show you guys. Pisces is basically Hellion Lua's star sign. 120 base speed, you know, not bad. It's pretty good. You don't have any crit damage, unnecessary stats, but look at this. No effectiveness at all. and the attack relatively low, I'd say, right, compared to like other star signs. It's not terrible, but you have a decent amount of attack. You have really good speed. So I guess what they're trying to do is trying to make him faster, trying to encourage people to use him more in that way. If I show you compared to regular Beehoo right now, regular Beehoo is actually only 115 base speed, and this effectiveness is actually just from this, right, and his own imprint. But if I take these away, okay, if I just unequip literally everything from him, you'll see that he actually has quite a decent attack stat here because of his passive, and he gets quite a bit of free defense too. But take this defense and put it into effectiveness because of his passive, and so now you're just gonna have almost relatively about the same attack stat. You're just losing the effectiveness and gaining speed and a bit of health. So again, it's okay, right? There's nothing wrong with it. We'll see how it plays out in practice. 5 base speed is actually insane, so again, we'll see if Beehoo becomes viable. I think he will. I think a consistent burn applier like Beehoo is actually going to be pretty nice with the new warfare rules. And it's good to see that they're trying to buff these units back into viability, even if it's just for like a season or so, because what that allows people to do is to, put variety into their teams and drafts and bring back older units. And so if they continue with these warfare rule patterns and continue buffing units in accordance to what the warfare rules are, it might be pretty good to help keep things fresh in the meta, right? And of course, people are eventually going to get phased out regardless, so it might be just good to see these units come back, even if it's temporary. Okay, what we got here for his exclusive equipment, though, is that instead of doing the attack and defense, it's going to be attack and effectiveness increased by 5%. That's just, increasing damage, increasing consistency with your debuffs and burns. But his EE here, I think is what a lot of people are going to do. This one was incorporated into his skill 3 already. You just burn everyone for a turn when you use your Symphony of Radiance. Now he can inflict a second burn, but again, keep in mind the warfare rule will automatically detonate burns at the end of your turn. So if you go first and you have a fast, high attack, high effectiveness Beehoo, and you just skill 3, apply 2 burns, you strip your opponent's buffs, apply 2 burns, and then you detonate them at the end of the turn, that is actually going to be really, really good. At 120 base speed, Beehoo is might actually be used. Again, we'll see what the warfare rules and how it's like, but I'm kind of liking this vision with where he's going, right? So I think he's actually got a pretty decent buff here, not gonna lie. All right, moving on to something I'm actually just a little bit on the fence about is Hwayoung, right? So Hwayoung here, they changed her soul burn. Instead of increasing damage dealt and then dealing increased additional damage, which they actually gave her in her last balance update, they're changing it yet again so that it grants an extra attack with the same skill. Keep in mind, you don't actually take an extra turn, you just attack twice. So not terrible, because it will probably overall deal more damage than this soul burn. But now it opens you up to dealing, since you're doing like an extra attack, you are more vulnerable to Lionheart and those types of things. Not that Hwayoung had difficulty one-shotting Lionhearts anyway, but just throwing that out there, right? Just something else you have to watch out for. So her passive now, instead of decreasing crit damage by 30%, I was expecting them to buff that to just, when suffering any damage, reduce it, right? Kind of like what they did with Little Queen Charlotte and stuff like that, but no, they didn't end up going that direction. They just increased her evasion by 50% after releasing a bunch of units that essentially counter evasion. So again, a little bit strange. I'm not sure why they did this, but maybe it's gonna help her out. I don't know. I don't see, evasion's so unreliable. I'd rather have something like this than something like this. But again, we'll see, right? Now, at the start of the turn, it says when the caster does not have a debuff, grants increased attack for 1 turn. That is actually just going to be changed, where she's going to get the attack buff regardless, which is great. This effect here that Hwayoung used to have, or she currently has right now, is Benimaru's Tachi, so you have to be debuff free. And now she's just going to be able to attack buff regardless, which is, again, not bad. yeah, just removing that condition is pretty good. Just makes her a bit more consistent. I don't know about the evasion though. The evasion part is really throwing me for a loop. The other good thing is that they are actually decreasing the attack difference that's needed for you to reach your maximum defense penetration. So this will make it a lot easier for her to nuke units that are closer to her in attack stat, right? You do stack your Hwayoung, typically 4,000, 4,500 attacks, something like that, and try to nuke somebody. So yeah, this will just make her a bit more viable against other things. Again, is this gonna make her meta? I really don't think so. She'll do a lot more damage. She'll be a lot more consistent, especially with the soul burn. I just don't know about the evasion. I feel like she should have just gotten flat like 30% damage reduction or something of that sort to make her a bit better. With this, I don't really see her. I don't really expect to see her played. Right now, they did change her EE. She now gains 15% combat readiness when using her skill 1. So I guess this makes sense for her soul burn, right? You kick twice, so now you end up pushing yourself 30%, which is pretty cool. This is a lot of synergy with her kit. I kind of like it. But then you lose this EE, which is now built into her kit, right? Where you get the attack increase regardless of your debuff status. So it's good that they got rid of this and built it in, and it's good that they got this. I think this might be one of her better EEs here. I know you could just get increased damage on your skill 3, which is nice, but this will be pretty good for her to be more consistent in damage output throughout longer matches instead of always waiting for your skill 3 to pop up. Who knows? I still don't think she's going to be super viable. But again, we'll see, because, you know, Empyrean Ilanov kind of exists. Next up is Landy, a limited unit, getting a buff here. So we see that instead of giving a speed buff for 2 turns and pushing 15% combat readiness, she's now just going to push 25% combat readiness, and she grants a barrier to herself that scales with her attack stat, which is kind of a big trade-off, right? The speed buff that Landy gave was actually really powerful. Landy used to push up her team, and then with speed buff, they'll cut you, even though her teammates might be lower speed than yours. With the extra speed from the speed buff, they can start cutting. So that's not going to happen anymore. You're just going to get more combat readiness, which is also not terrible, honestly. It makes it easier for you to bridge with your units, right? So it's just you're just trading overall like burst CR pushing like all in one go for like you know, gaining combat readiness over time with your speed buff naturally. So this is not terrible. I actually kind of like the barrier that she gets, because if you're running her with Wall of Order and you're getting stealth all the time, then the barrier actually helps keep the Landy in stealth, right? And Wall of Order already naturally gives her attack buffs and such, so this actually scales really well with the greater attack buff and that you'd get from it. So again, it's pretty good synergy. I kind of like it. But losing the speed buff is definitely going to hurt, and it kind of breaks up a bit of the synergy she had with certain other speed scaling units. But overall, I think people are not building her as opener. Like, no one's building an opener Landy really anymore. You're building her slower, you're building her with higher damage, and you're just using her to nuke into teams that are trying to stack buffs. They might be bringing Landy back here at this point because of the night meta, right? We saw when Landy was originally released, she kind of decimated the night meta at the time with like Last Rider Krau, Ice Krau, and all that good stuff. Right? Tywin, like the Golden Boys and everything. Landy was used to kind of destroy that meta. So yeah, it's good to see her coming back. Hopefully she will see more play. I was already tempted. I don't know if this is in a recording I had like in the last week or so, or if I scrapped that recording, but I did try to use Earth Landy in RTA, and it was pretty fun. She was pretty close to winning my matches for me, but in the end, she was just lacking that little bit of extra power. Maybe she's gonna get it through this buff here. Speaking of just a little bit of extra power, let's take a look at Midnight Gala Lilias, because her skill 1 now gets some increased damage dealt on a soul burn. Instead of increasing the amount recovered, they're just gonna increase the amount recovered overall, right? And then now you can soul burn for extra damage, which is pretty good. She does recover health proportional to her attack, right? So it's not how much damage you do, it's just going to be the set amount every time. So it's good that they're giving her a higher percentage. Again, we have to see data mines and stuff to see what the actual percentage is, but I think it's an overall good change because her skill 3 used to be her only strong damaging skill, but now her skill 1 can be a bit more reliable in helping her keep the damage up against the opponent, especially when her S3 is down, right? Next, we have a change here to her skill 2. So instead of just increasing attack for 2 turns and pushing by 15%, she's going to increase the attack of everyone but herself for 2 turns, and then increase their combat readiness by 20%, but she also gains 50% combat readiness, so she actually turn cycles a lot faster, which is pretty decent. I like that change a lot. Minaga Lilias is annoying because she can take multiple turns and you can get multiple like stacks of barriers and stuff on her. So her being able to refresh her barriers is really annoying. Also helps her keep her stay alive much longer and helps her deal more damage, which in turn helps her heal more based on the skill 1 here. So overall, it's going to be pretty synergistic with how her kit is designed. And the skill 3, so it's weird that she doesn't buff herself with her passive anymore, but it makes sense when you see a skill 3 where she grants increased attack to herself for 3 turns now instead of 2. And whenever a target is a hero, you actually ignores damage reduction and damage sharing effects. So this is massive. This gives you another answer to things like Lady of the Scales, Genesis Raws, and those types of teams, right? Where you can just nuke something like a Genesis Raws and then not have to care about all this damage reduction and sharing and all that good stuff. So the other thing about this is that Minaga Lilias was a way to counter her was to use Aureus Knights, and when they attacked your the knight that they want to nuke, let's say Last Rider Krau, but you had Aureus on another unit, you can't one-shot, right? So this actually takes care of one of her weaknesses, which is kind of good. Just keep in mind, you don't really have a way to stop immortality, though, so if Genesis Raws or whatever's in front of Lady of the Scales, then you won't be able to one-shot there, but at least you'll get your combat readiness pushes and all that stuff for your team. And this is where they got the combat readiness increase from, by the way. She normally would just increase by 35% after her skill 3. And now they're just changing it so that she gains 50% through her skill 2, right? Whenever the target's health is 50% or lower. So that's not bad. Okay, Minaga Lilias, do I think she's going to see play? Again, it really depends, because we have a unit that exists that's named Empyrean Ilanov, as you can see with a trend here in this patch notes, that even though they're trying to buff these units, because there's one unit that literally stops an entire mechanic from happening, you're going to see a lot of people struggle to use these characters unless they pre-ban the Ilanov, okay? Next up, we have a Moonlight 4-star Moon Bunny. So, honestly, I did not know that she just flat increased her effect res by 30%. That was not something I was aware of. I just thought my bunny was pretty good in terms of effect res. Hey, look, my build has a lot of effect res. It's good. I didn't know she gained like 30% for free. Anyway, she's going to lose this immunity buff, which I actually don't know how I feel about, because the immunity buff is one of the main reasons that you run her. This is going to get replaced by a skill effect nullifier. This is different than skill null. Regular skill nullifier nullifies damage that's dealt from a single hit. Skill effect nullifier is the ability that New Moon Luna has, right? So anytime you'll be pushed back by combat readiness or those types of things, it will stop that. Now, the good thing is, if you already have immunity on your teammates, then skill effect nullifier is a huge boon. The problem is, if you don't have immunity on your units, then skill effect nullifier kinda doesn't do a whole lot, because people can just strip your buffs, and then skill effect nullifier would go away, and then they'll still land all their debuffs on you, right? So that's the downside. If you have immunity, this is awesome. If you don't, sucks to suck, I guess. But yeah, anyway, you do increase combat readiness of yourself by 30%. I think this is actually pretty strong, because before it was that your opponent could take an extra turn and you just kind of still sit there with immunity and, you know, your barrier and your skill nulls and stuff. You can't do anything. But now with the increased combat readiness, you actually get to cut your opponent. Maybe you're going to build your bunny dom even faster now. So this could be decent. I can see her being used against Conqueror Lilias, for example, just like she was back in the day, and other extra turn units that are currently being run in the meta. Yeah. Overall, pretty good change. I like it so far. Just iffy on the immunity part. Just run immunity on your units, guys. It's gonna be very valuable. Okay. Now, when she uses her skill 3, right, she used to increase attack of all allies for 2 turns and increase combat readiness by 20%. Now she's going to grant a Vigor buff. Vigor doesn't give as much attack, but it also gives defense. I think it's 30% attack and 30% defense, right? So that's actually pretty decent because sometimes when you're running Bunny Dom, you don't want an attack buff for your team, or you're not running attack scalers, you're running bulkier units. So the Vigor buff actually helps you defensively by increasing your defense stat. And again, pretty good. Also increase combat readiness of everyone by 30% instead of 20, which is amazing. So that's actually also a huge change as well. Overall, Bunny Dom, I think, is a win. People will definitely be using her in controlled environments like Arena and Guild Wars, I'd say, where you can control like your team's immunity sets and stuff like that. Your skill effect nullifier is going to get a lot of value from it. In RTA, again, a little iffy just because Bunny Dom can be played around pretty easily, but we'll see if extra turn units are super common. I mean, like Rinok is the main one, I'd say. Like if she's skill 3s or skill 2s and then she's gonna come in with a skill 3, this would stop the skill effect nullifier does stop all of the splash damage from coming onto your team, so it does make Bunny Dom viable against Rinok. And the skill null actually, you know, protects your team against the Rinok's like actual S3 attack that penetrates defense. So this could just be their way of countering Rinok, which is nice. And I'll definitely be giving her a shot. Rinok's everywhere, so this is cool. But yeah, other than Rinok, I don't know if the skill effect nullifier is an upgrade over immunity. All right, next up we have Savior Adin. So an ML3 that you can get for free. They're changing her soul burn. No longer putting the unable to be buffed for 2 turns, which was honestly very bad. It was not even like a mid soul burn. It's just bad because you're not running her with effectiveness or anything. Even though Unbuffable is really strong, it's one of the most powerful debuffs in the game right now. She just doesn't have the effectiveness to land it on the units that you really want to land it on. But now when she procs her S2, her passive, she does gain 10 souls, kind of like how Dragon Bride Senya gains 10 souls here. We're starting to see a little bit of a trend. And when that happens, you're attacking everyone, right, and just spell a buff, so it's good. Then she is actually going to get that little Queen Charlotte treatment here, where you use your skill 3, you actually inflict extinction now when you defeat your opponent. So I think she's actually going to be a pretty nice option into like dark units right now, namely Bystander Hwayoung. I feel like she might be really good into Bystander Hwayoung because Little Queen Charlotte doesn't have a way to push herself up, but I think Adin does here, right? So she's not bad. And then you also have the team utility that Little Queen Charlotte doesn't have. You gain invincibility to everyone for a turn, right? Which is great. So that's not bad. Also, this is also buffed, so she grants invincibility to everyone including herself. It used to be that she grants invincibility to everyone except herself, so that's also one of the main things I wanted to highlight. I want to make that clear. Her soul burn now just increases the damage that's dealt, and again, it's nice, just you want to be able to target things that aren't just dark. And then they fixed that as well. So in the Faith rune, they said, hey, it used to be that when you hit a dark unit, you increase your damage dealt by 20%. Now they're just increasing her damage flat out 20% against everybody. And keep in mind, she also has extinction. She's not just an anti-dark unit anymore, right? And she also has a 100% chance to decrease skill cooldowns by 2 turns whenever you defeat somebody. Before, it had to be a dark elemental that you hit that you decrease by 1 turn. Now, as long as you finish somebody off, skill cooldown by 2 turns, you can spam that skill 3 and keep that invincibility up, guys. This is huge, right? I think I think Adin getting this buff is really nice, especially for people that are free to play and getting into the game and you're using free units. Savior Adin is available to everybody, and she is really good, especially the fact that you can skip story and stuff now and skip chapters. You can get her pretty early on in your game and your run, hopefully, if you can pass the Zeo boss stage and stuff. But yeah, Savior Adin, I think this is her redemption. She's going to be very strong, and she actually doesn't really step on the toes of Little Queen Charlotte as much. I know Little Queen Charlotte also got buffed to not really care if you're hitting a dark unit or not, but yeah, this is just not that bad. A lot of team protection, team support skills, right, in your Savior Adin. So I kind of like it, living up to her name. All right, moving on, we have Angelic Momo, so specialty change Momo. Instead of increasing combat readiness by 50% with her skill 3, now she'll actually just decrease skill cooldowns of her by 1 turn. This is nice because her skill 2 is basically on like nothing of a cooldown. So yeah, you could just skill 2 and then skill 3, and you could skill 2 again the next turn. And her skill 2 actually has a chance to reset itself anyway, so she's going to be a very consistent cleanser. She is actually going to get more health. There was a time a couple years ago where I did make a video using Momo in RTA and high level RTA, and she was really strong against a heavy debuff meta. So this is cool. We'll see if the meta shifts to be more debuff heavy. If it does, she is a very viable unit to be running. She also now grants just 25% damage reduction instead of 20%. Again, great to see. It synergizes well with the health boost, right, to keep her alive longer on the field. And then they said when using your purification, your skill 2, you have a 25% chance to dispel 1 additional debuff, and now it's just gonna be 100%. So again, very consistent cleansing. Love to see it. Momo's one of those units you can easily build up to like 300 resist without a problem. So yeah, highly recommend you have one on hand. Again, another 3-star unit, a free-to-play unit, easy to access. Just do the specialty change quests. She's pretty strong, right? If you're in need of a cleanser and a healer, definitely pick her up. I used to use her in RTA and she was very powerful. But yeah, also when using Purification, you also have a 100% chance to recover health of all allies by an additional 20%, regardless of having debuffs inflicted or not. It used to be 10%, right? So again, you're increasing your healing output. I believe her healing output scales with her HP too. So again, not bad, right? You're getting some synergy up here with her increased bulk. So again, Momo, fantastic unit. Highly recommend you guys build her. This might be helping people out with potentially more debuff heavy meta coming out. I don't know. There's still no cleanser that can counter Witch of the Mirror Tenebria, which is the main debuffer that everyone's looking out for right now. So just keep that in mind. All right, and moving on, we have our last 2 things, the artifact adjustments. So the first one is Crown of Glory. Now you just remove 10 souls from the enemy instead of 5. Not bad. It might, again, this might just be like a free run counter type thing where they're buffing Last Rider Krau, and they want you to run this on Last Rider Krau against Freerin, because every time she attacks S1 or S3, there's an AoE involved at some point in the attack. And stripping 10 souls is really powerful. So yeah, pretty good. Also, keep in mind, you grant a damage reduction as well. So you're reducing damage you're taking with a stronger barrier, and you're taking more souls away. Seems like quite a win for Last Rider Crown to free run matchups, if I do say so. Next up, we have Otherworldly Machinery. I'm pretty sure this one is a free artifact that you get from doing a side story or something like that. It's this is what's her face? Yuna's artifact, right? So Otherworldly Machinery used to just increase critical hit chance by a flat amount, and then increase the damage of AoEs, right? Which wasn't really useful at all. But now AoEs, 10% extra damage, and when you're fighting another character that's not a leader boss monster, you have a up to 100% chance to ignore damage sharing effects. This is huge. Again, keep in mind that Rangers in this upcoming meta are probably going to be seeing a bit more use, mostly just because they have that warfare rule that Rangers, I think, take 40% less damage or something like that, if I recall correctly. So they're staying alive longer. They have access to things like Guiding Light and stuff too, which makes them really annoying. And now you can ignore damage sharing. So you're going to say screw Lady of the Scales and all that stuff. not bad. This might actually be really good on Earth Landy too. Just throwing that out there. You're dealing more damage with your skill 3. You're ignoring damage sharing and all that stuff. So it's going to be a ton of damage that you're dumping on your opponents. Again, could be pretty good. Let me know what other rangers you guys think are going to be good with Otherworldly Machinery. Right? I know Amalika exists, but she already, I think, ignores defense sharing and stuff like that. So I don't think you're going to be running this on her. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the entire balance adjustment preview. I overall think I like the direction that they're going in with these changes. I know some people are saying like, oh, but you know, you're making Adin like a generalist instead of really good against just darks. But I think in those cases, sometimes elemental restrictions are just too restrictive. Kind of like how Kawana used to be like mono fire teams, and then they built Helga for like mono earth teams, and legitimately nobody ever used them. So it is good to see them relax some of these restrictions a little bit to make the units a bit more versatile overall. But overall, I don't know who the big winner is. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. I'm saying Savior Adin is going to be kind of underrated. Everybody else kind of just loses to Empyrean Ilinov, so I don't know how to judge that. Otherworldly Machinery, I think, is amazing with what they're doing there. And they're kind of giving Last Rite of Krau a decent niche with Crown of Glory. So I do like that as well, right? Getting these units to be more specific in their roles is always cool to see. And with the upcoming burns and the ranger stuff, Beehoo is definitely going to be a pretty big winner here. I think Landy is going to be pretty decent again with the 40% mitigation of damage that rangers are going to see. Landy is going to be pretty nice as well. And then Midnight Gala Lilias, I think might be good if more people, like, again, if more people are banning Empyrean Ilinov, then Gala, Dragon Bride, Senya, Last Rite of Krau, they're all gonna see a lot more play. Hwayoung, maybe maybe we're just trolling and coping, I don't know. Bunny Dom for the Rinok though is a kind of a welcome change, honestly. Anyway, with that being said though, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.